Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the NFL preview show hosted by yours truly, Thomas Brown Jr. And we have some exciting things to talk about in the NFC West, in the NFC East, and just a couple questions, some storylines to cover. Did the Brandon Ayuk situation get cleared out? Did the Cowboys actually go all in? We'll find out on this next episode of Dragon Ball Z. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get right into it. And for starters, I got to bring in one of my favorite people in the world. And not just because he's in the same division as me, but because he's one of the best there is. Team MBS media member, Draft Central, you name it. Greg, how you doing, sir? How are you?
I'm doing very well, Thomas. Yourself?
I'm doing great, man. It's a pleasure to see you as always, regardless of what kind of blue you're wearing. I'll take it.
Well, you know. But see, I don't have any. I don't have my colors on. I really don't. I really don't. There's no white and silver and all that. No. There's none of that. No.
Good for you. I like that for you.
Yeah,
Keep it going, okay? All right. And next we have the lovely guy who covers the Draft Central enthusiast, Bucks Weekly, Jeff Barnes. How are you doing, sir?
I'm happy to be in the analyst seat for once, letting you run the show.
That's all right. And lastly, I don't think it would be legitimate if we didn't have the big boss man, the guy that covers the Washington Commanders these days, Joe Cardoso. How are we doing, sir?
What's going on, man? I was promised to be snacks here. I don't see any snacks at my table. What's going on, Thomas?
Yeah, I didn't get mine either.
So the email was just a bunch of BS. The welcome to the show email was a bunch of BS. Gotcha.
I know. Shame on me. It must be a Philly thing. It must be an NFC East thing. I don't know. I don't know.
Pretty much.
It's fine. Okay. Well, look. All right. There's a lot of things we're going to cover. We're going to get to the fun division in a second, but I want to talk about the lovely NFC West, one of the toughest divisions there is in the NFL. So let's address the elephant in the room. Let's get this out the way. How about those lovely 49ers? Who wants to take that one?
Oh, I think I'll jump in on that one, man. San Francisco 49ers, I mean, like you talked about top of the show, obviously we got to figure out what's going on with Brandon Ayuk, but I think that Brock Purdy, another year under his belt, a guy that's been slept on and still hated on by a lot of people, but just keeps on doing what he needs to do, which is win games. I think this 49ers team will find out what they're really made of. Can they make it back to the Super Bowl and finally get the job done? You lock up Trent Williams, obviously. Deebo Samuels needs to stay healthy. Your defense gets some players back that you lost to season-ending injuries last year. I think that the NFC West, in my opinion, is the 49ers division to lose.
Okay.
Oh, how I disagree with this statement.
Shocker.
Because, of course, I don't like the Niners in the playoffs, of course, because of being a Cowboys fan. I don't like facing the Niners. But Christian McCaffrey has a calf injury. We've heard about these calf injuries that are supposed to only take a couple of weeks to heal. How did that go for Joe Burrow? How did that go? It didn't go very well for him. Now Trent Williams isn't in camp and all that other fun sort of stuff as well. And I particularly like what the LA Rams did in the draft. They got the number one edge player because Jared Verse understands how to do both things. He understands how to stop the run, and he has a very good pass rush as well. Then they added a big defensive tackle to go alongside their other DT from a couple of seasons ago here to replace Aaron Donald in Braden Fisk. Fisk is a big boy, and he is a mean man. As well. Then they drafted some punk kid running back who's going to be behind Kyron Williams from Notre Dame. I think he went to that school that you cheer for, Joe. Blake Corum or something. Yeah. But anyhow, I love what the Rams have got, and I think the Rams will challenge the Niners for first place this year.
Interesting. Jeff, what are your thoughts on the NFC West, sir?
I think people have to really look at this division up and down before you start to really say who's going to win it. We know how good San Francisco is. We've seen their dominance in this division the past few years. We see the Rams coming back to force, but you can't sleep on the Seattle Seahawks. That team, while everybody goes, well, Geno Smith isn't the household name at quarterback, that team is built very well around the line of scrimmage. They've got a great running game to complement Geno Smith. With Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet coming off the bench. The receiving core, we know DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, but of course Jackson Smith and Jigba. And there's plenty more coming behind that with Laviska Shenault coming off the bench as well. Of course, Noah Fant at tight end. So you look at that offensive line, the young tackles that they have, the defensive line, you add Byron Murphy to that mix, very loaded up front. I think this team is going to be a lot better than they were last year, and they were pretty good last year.
Okay. Well, since everybody wants to cover everybody but the sorry team that's left in the NFC West, let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals, shall we? They went 4th overall and grabbed Marvin Harrison, one of the best wide receiver talents there is to date. And there's been some great wide receivers in the past couple drafts. But outside of that, there's not a whole lot of anything else in Arizona. Except for that small guy that plays quarterback. He wears number 1. His name is Kyler Murray. He's back in the fold. He'll have a full year to work with Harrison. They got 3 new starters on that offensive line. None of them are not too great. However, that's kind of where the Arizona Cardinals are at this year. They are in a rebuilding phase. We're not expecting a whole lot from them, and that's okay. However, I will mention the fact that I don't know how bad teams can get worse, but that's what the Cardinals did on defense. They still have Budda Baker there in the back nine, and that's great. But outside of that, we're just kind of like faltering on names at this point. And I just don't see a whole lot of improvement with the Arizona Cardinals. And I ain't gonna lie, that's okay with me. That's totally fine. We need some stinkers in the world. And it just so happened that the Arizona Cardinals fit the mold. That's totally fine. It's cool.
Well, yeah, but after they drafted Marvin Harrison, they also took a very good edge player from Missouri in Robinson.
Yeah.
They also drafted Trey Benson, who's an excellent running back. They have some new weapons. And Max Melton is a very good cornerback as well for them. So they do have new weapons, but again, it's going to take time for this group to be able to play together. That's the bottom line.
That's great. But this all is going to contribute to 4 wins anyway. Let's not do this, okay? All right. The Arizona Cardinals are going to be the Arizona Cardinals that we all know and love. And
they don't play the Cowboys this year, so they don't play the Cowboys this year, which was an easy win for them last year, by the way. Because of course the Cowboys don't know how to stop the damn running game. That was a huge win for Arizona last year.
Oh boy,
it was. I enjoyed that game very much. So
yes, I know you did.
I know the Cardinals though than Brock Pierre. Got to bring Brock on the show.
I know you enjoyed that. Yeah.
What's happening, man?
What's up, everybody? How you guys doing today?
Doing good. I know you want to talk about the lowly Arizona Cardinals, so I'll let you have the floor on this one.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals are in a very unique position right now. I think that they ended last season kind of on a little bit of a high, obviously being Philadelphia. They were 1 kick away from upsetting Seattle in the season finale and sending Pete Carroll out with a loss. And they're slowly building things up. Losing BJ Ojulari is a huge loss to them, without a doubt. But they're still a very young team with a tremendous amount of talent and a defense coordinator that his schemes seem to be really finding their hold in the NFL right now. The problem with the Cardinals is that Kyler Murray has yet to show us that he can remain healthy for an entire season in which the Cardinals are competitive. So with that being said, my expectations for this team this year isn't high at all, but I do think if they can get Kyler's health in order and if Kyler's able to play 17 games, don't be surprised if this team backdoors their way into a wild card spot. They're very young, they're very hungry, and everyone's overlooking them right now. Plus, they play in a division that's not as strong as they were last year. San Francisco has a bunch of problems right now internally. They have a head coach that has an ego the size of Mount Everest. The Rams are dealing with a bunch of injuries on their offense. Right, Seattle's still rebuilding the DB room. I think Seattle is going to be a lot better than we think, but again, we don't exactly know. Geno Smith is going to be on a contract year. So a contract year is you either play excellent or you play like trash. So we still have to wait to see how that's going to work out. And DK Metcalf was just smacking his teammate with a helmet at practice. So maybe there's problems inside the locker room, right? So with all that being said, I think Arizona has a shot to really upset a lot of playoff predictions and maybe sneak their way into the wild card. I'm not putting money on it, but don't be surprised if it happens.
Brock, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we're no longer in 2015 anymore.
Thomas,
So,
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but your offensive coordinator is Kellen Moore, and the Eagles are about to suck ass.
Hey.
We're not on the NFC East yet. We're not in the NFC East yet.
We will cross that bridge when we get there, okay?
Yeah. You know what bridge you're not crossing? Championship bridge. Because you have Kellen Moore calling plays. Right. You have a coaching version of Terrell Owens, team obliterator on defense named Vic Fangio. Yeah, his schemes are good from week 1 to week 15. You know what happens in week 16? They get tired of his BS and they're ready to go home. All right.
That is facts.
Yeah, you know what? You know why the internet crashes in Philadelphia? It's because all the players at one time booked their tickets to Cancun. All right. That's why the internet's getting used up too much.
And Thomas, I didn't mention the Cardinals beating the Eagles either. I didn't say that. Yeah. I talked about them beating the Cowboys. I did not mention them beating your Philadelphia Eagles. That was all Brock.
You know,
hey, Thomas, you're gonna have to fight with the fancy shirt guys tonight. I can see that's how this is gonna go.
Yeah, I'm just saying, the Cowboys are the Cowboys. Like, I don't think that we need to really discuss them much more because they've been the same team from 2000 to 2024. All right. Really great.
No. It's been since 1996, Brock. 1996.
Obviously, you go back to 1950, and it's a legacy of falling up short. You know, but it is what it is. I can't talk. My team has been in the gutter for a long time, but we're not talking about them today because that's not the topic of the show. But what I do want to say is, Thomas, don't go taking shots at the Cardinals, considering they still beat the Eagles in Philadelphia.
Brock,
what's up?
Sure.
No, not sure. I can look at the stats right now. I can show you the scoreline. Not sure.
Okay.
It happened.
I'm aware of that. I'm just saying we're not in 2015 anymore, where we have the Carson Palmer's, Larry Fitzgerald's a part of the offense. It's just not that time until I could see the improvement in offensive line. I just can't believe in what Arizona's doing this year. And again, like I said earlier, this is a rebuilding year for them anyway. So even them getting 6 wins, 7 wins is an improvement and something for Arizona fans to be excited heading into this year. But I just don't see it, man. They don't have a great schedule ahead of them anyways. So, I mean, it's cool. They're cool. Yeah.
I missed you, bro.
It's all right. It's all right. So what I do want to ask y'all though is let's address the elephant in the room with the Brandon Ayuk situation going on in San Francisco. Do you think that this has been a case that's been lasting for way too long and should have been resolved maybe back before the draft? Or do you think that this timeline that's been going on between Brandon Ayuk and the 49ers is making sense? What do you think, Jeff?
It makes sense. It makes sense for the Niners because they've done this for years. They've done this for years with their players.
Okay.
It makes sense because he's under contract. You don't have to rush to move the guy.
That's right.
I think it makes sense for your locker room to move him on as fast as possible, but he's under contract. He wants to renew his deal. He wants a better deal. They're not prepared to give him what he wants. However, they ain't letting him go for nothing. And teams are going to get more and more desperate. We see the training camp injuries every year. Somebody's receiver is going to go down. Somebody's going to need a receiver for whatever reason. somebody's going to make a deal. We've already seen a couple of teams show interest. They're not getting the offer that they want. And I think one of the teams that actually made an offer that they wanted, he didn't like the contract offer. So there's three parts to this. There's the Niners part, there's the interested team part, and then there's Brandon Ayuk's part. So this is a complicated process that's getting drawn out because there are multiple phases to it.
Okay, Joe. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
Who's Brandon Ayuk? That's my thought. Like, for real. I mean, is he a great up-and-coming young receiver? Absolutely. Is he Justin Jefferson? Is he Jamar Chase? I'd even say, I'll play my Commanders fandom. Is he even Terry? Is he even Terry? Scary Terry. He's an up-and-coming receiver who all of a sudden thinks he's like the elite of the elite and deserves this boatload of money. Does he deserve to get a bag? Sure. A decent amount of money, but you are not like a superstar number one, in my opinion. I think if the 49ers lose you, they can make up with when they have people like Deebo Samuel, if you can stay healthy, when you got George Kittle, when you got some of the other young receivers coming out, the kid out of Florida, their wide receiving core will be just fine without him. So I think he needs to snap into reality and know his role, as The Rock would say, and shut his mouth and take what the 49ers offer him. Or you go to Pittsburgh or you go to the Cleveland Browns, good luck with that, and you see if you really are a true number one. But I just think for somebody who hasn't really done a whole lot in the league, for you to come out and just be as bold as you are and make all these demands, my question is, who are you? I think you're easily replaceable from the 49ers. And Greg's also right. This is classic San Fran 49ers when they treat some of their players. Like, unless you take the offer they give you, which is probably going to be a little bit under what the leagues are playing the rest of the receivers, you're going to be gone. And you might get mad about that as a fan of the 49ers, but somehow, some way, with that scouting department and John Lynch, they find a way to find somebody who's either better than you or as good as you at that position. They've been doing it for years.
Yeah, and I just want to also add to that sentiment as well that I think people forget that it was literally like 2 years ago where Brandon Ayuk was in the doghouse. Like, I don't know why everybody forgot that was a thing. I don't know where everybody's amnesia is at, but that was a thing just 2 years ago, okay, where Brandon Ayuk was trying to find time to see the field, let alone get touches, let alone get, yards after receptions, all that good fun stuff. He was having a hard time seeing the field. And my thing is that we fast forward to now. I don't know what changed between then and now. Christian McCaffrey's still a bigger deal than him. Trent Williams is still a bigger deal than him. I mean, Deebo Samuel's still a bigger deal than him.
Talk about it.
George Kittle's still a bigger deal than him. Hey, you know what? I'm going to be the one to say it. Brock Purdy is a bigger deal than him. So if you're not even the most touted guy on your own offense, what makes you think that you're going to get wide receiver number one money? That's just never made sense to me. That's never made sense to me. Now, of course, you always got that one person that's like, oh, well, he's never had an opportunity. If he's given an opportunity, then maybe he'll shine as number one. Why?
That's expensive maybe. That's a real expensive maybe.
That's a real expensive maybe. So it's one of those things where it's like, where is your true value on a guy like Brandon Ayuk? And be realistic. Because if you're the 49ers, I just drafted Ricky Parasol in the draft to basically be your replacement. Let's not act like that didn't happen. Okay? So if you really don't want to be here, that's fine. Look, if you want to make things difficult because of your damn contract situation, sure. But you know what won't be an issue is us going far into the playoffs, because that's kind of what we do. Okay? So whether you're here or not, it does not change what happens for us in this season. So I'm saying, you're not a needle mover in this offense. You're just not. Christian McCaffrey is the first one that goes after him. And then there's Deebo Samuel. Then there's all these other guys. And then it's you. So how valuable do you really think you are? That's all I'm saying. But before we head into the next in the most touted, underrated division in the NFL, in the NFC East, we'll have a commercial break, and we'll be back with you shortly.
In 2006, we founded Yeti Coolers with a simple mission: build the cooler we use every day if it existed. One that was built for the serious outdoor enthusiasts rather than for mass discount retailers. One that could take the abuse we knew we'd put it through, out in the field and on the water. One that simply wouldn't break. We decided early on that production innovation would come from necessity and first-hand experience, not from market research and data analysis. Today, Yeti products perform when it matters most. Whether that be an excursion into the remote Alaskan wilderness, chasing redfish on the Gold Coast, or just getting together with friends in the backyard, we make gear that helps you stay out longer, travel farther, and live harder. Hashtag
All right, we are back for the 2024 NFL preview show, where again, we just covered the NFC West, but now it's time to get to the fun stuff and cover the NFC East. I am so excited for the chaos that is about to ensue, given that one of my teams is a part of it. But let's get all the bad teams out the way, so to speak. Joe, what would you like to discuss about your lovely Commanders as we head into the season for this year?
I'm excited. It's a brand new era still for us. Last year you obviously had Dan Snyder sell the team, and you had Josh Harris, Magic Johnson, and company take over, but they were still in the process. But now it's a clean slate. It's all Josh Harris from the top to the bottom, as far as like GM, team president, the draft we had, the players we brought in. So it's an exciting time to be a Commanders fan. Jaden Daniels under center this year. We'll see what he can do. I think for us on the offensive side, yeah, it's all about the rookie quarterback, but he can't do a damn thing. He doesn't have an offensive line. So the offensive line has got to improve. When you have a team that had 2 tackles last year that both gave up 10 sacks each, I'll say that again, they both gave up 10 sacks each, that's not a recipe for winning football. So it's all about that offensive line. We have some weapons on the outside. We'll see what Zach Ertz has left in the tank at tight end. If nothing else, he'll bring us some really good leadership. And I'm also to see what Austin Eckler does, because he was considered a number one. At least they thought he was a number one and lost hands with the Chargers. With us having B-Rob back there, he can kind of pick his spots. And I wonder if that would make him be a little bit more healthy, stay on the field a little bit more. And on the defensive side of the ball, just like our offense, our defense was trash, man. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Secondary was bad. We'll have to see what we can do with that side of the ball as well, as we bring another former Cowboy in to be defensive coordinator. And you know that Dan Quinn will have his fingerprints all over that defense. So for us, a lot of young players, a lot of new faces. We'll see what we can do, but the offensive line has got to improve. Secondary has got to improve, and we have to be reintroduced to something exciting. It's called a pass rush.
Well, that pass rush is going to be that pass rush is going to be slow. Dante Fowler only plays a few games every year. Dante Armstrong, also a former Cowboy, he only comes up for half the season as well. So your pass rush that you want is going to be suffering, I'm afraid, Joe.
Imagine if the Commanders had like a player that was like the quality of like a Montez Sweat. Oh, wait, sorry.
Oh boy. Oh,
He's in Chicago, I believe now. I think he's in Chicago.
Christie's been very happy about that. I'm not too sure what the reaction in Washington has been since. But, the Commanders, if I was the Commanders coaching staff, Jaden Daniels does not play a single snap this season. That kid is going to get hurt fast. I mean, I was watching his tape in college, and he was, through no fault but his very own, was getting lit up by SEC defenses. Now this is a grown man's league. Do not play him, or you're going to take years off of his career early with what Washington's got on the offensive side of the ball right now. To me, this year is all about two things: weeding out the rest of the roster and developing the youth for the future. You have two very, I don't like the word young, but younger-minded, competent coaches on both sides of the ball, Cliff Kingsbury and Dan Quinn. Let's not forget, obviously, what we saw with Dan Quinn in Atlanta. And then Cliff Kingsbury had the Cardinals as the number one team in the NFC until injuries derailed him that second year. I think that if they take it nice and slow and develop Daniels and don't let him get hurt on the field, and then, again, start weeding out some of the extra fat, per se, of the team, I think that we could get a very competitive Washington Commanders team within the next 24 to 36 months. It just depends how patient they're willing to be, and for the ownership, how patient they're willing to be with his coaching staff.
Wow. Brock being optimistic about a team that struggled to win games last year, it has to be a sight to behold for me. It is. I ain't going to lie. So since we're being optimistic about teams that struggled last year, what are our thoughts about the New York Giants?
Let's talk about the New York Football Giants. They went all in on Daniel Jones, right? They let Saquon walk. They went value at running back instead of actually paying to keep their running back or paying to get someone else's running back. So while they went with the economical choice in Singletary and worked through the draft and bring in some young backs, you look at this team overall, there's still a lot of questions about it. Let's start at the wide receiver position. Malik Neighbors is the new shiny new thing. Jalen Hyatt came in last year, was able to make some deep plays for him. But other than that, you don't have an established possession receiver. Wan'Dale Robinson is good in slot, but overall, they're still going to have questions at the wide receiver position. Daniel Bellinger is going to be the starting tight end. I think Theo Johnson can be what Darren Waller was in a couple of years with a little bit of seasoning. But it's going to be a lot of pressure on Daniel Jones. Let's face it. They're going to try to run the football to help protect them, but they paid him a lot of money. They believe in him. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Daniel Jones to carry this football team. And be honest with you, they're one hit away from being back to cutlets. So right now, it's all on Daniel Jones to carry this football team. It's a very big gamble. Everybody watched the Hard Knocks where you got to see the thinking that went behind it. Passing on a defensive tackle that was actually going to help your defense because you didn't believe he had enough pass rush, but you do get Brian Burns on the outside. So him and Thibodeau on the outside, a formidable matchup for all offensive tackles of the NFC East and around the league. However, up the middle, you still have question marks about this defense. I think right now, that's the biggest question mark. Can they be tough up the middle? They're going to run a lot of some zone blitzes. Shane Bowen is not known for running a lot of man coverage. So you're going to see a lot of mixes of zones, some zone blitzes, a little bit of dropouts here with some zone dogs, things of that nature to kind of confuse quarterbacks and allow that pass rush to get there. But once again, if this offense can't control the ball, can't move the ball consistently down the field, they're not going to get a ton of shot plays down the football field. They're going to have to manufacture first downs. That's going to be the big question. Can Daniel Jones do that for 17 games, stay healthy behind this offensive line?
I have a question for everybody, Thomas, if I can hijack your show real quick.
Sure.
Do we all agree, or where do you guys rank Daniel Jones as far as like players that are under the most pressure to have a good season? I think for me, my personal, who's under the most pressure this season, he's top 5. What do you guys think?
I would say top 10. I wouldn't say top 5. There are others with a lot more on the line. I think that they showed us. They went all in on him. So unless he has just a piss poor year and they have no choice but to move in a different direction next year, I believe as long as he has a solid year, they're going to continue to build around him. So I think it has to be a disastrous year for Daniel Jones for the Giants to move in a different direction. They banked too much on him this offseason to go in a different direction after 1 year. It has to be absolutely disastrous.
I actually disagree. I don't think that he's even in the top 20 of guys with the highest pressure. And the reason why is because what is the expectation for Daniel Jones in 2024? He has this narrative about him that he sucks. I mean, that's a brutal way of putting it, but that's not my words. That's like the national opinion. So really, he's playing with house money. If he goes and stinks the bed, oh wow, good job Joe Schoen, good job Brian Dable for re-signing him. That it's not going to fall on Daniel Jones. But if he goes out there, he has a phenomenal year. Yeah, sure, the credit is going to go to Brian Dable for being the great, brilliant mind. But also it's also going to go to Jones if he's able to flash that athleticism and abilities that we see from him in years past. So to me, he's playing with house money right now. And if he doesn't perform to the standard, who are they going to go to? Tyrod, Tommy DeVito? Like he's got more rope than you would expect a player in his position to be. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no pressure on him at all. I mean, there's internal pressure to succeed for sure. But when it comes to exterior pressure, like the Giants' expectations this year is right in the toilet. His expectations this year is right in the toilet. So even if he goes average, that'll be good enough for him to get to stay with the Giants. They already want to cut him. They just can't for financial reasons. Again, you're playing with house money. No matter what you do, you're already headed to the worst result. So, take some chances, see what happens. Hey, maybe a couple of 50-50 balls to Malik Neighbors goes your way, and your stats look a lot better. Giants win a couple more games, and hey, you're around for another year. So, not really a lot of pressure on Daniel Jones right now.
What you think, Greg?
Daniel Jones should never have been drafted 6th overall. He was never, ever that good of a quarterback to be a first-round pick the way he was. And then for the Giants to turn around and give him $40 million a season was even worse. You could talk about Saquon Barkley all you want. I know you're going to love him as he's wearing green now, but guess what? Saquon Barkley hasn't done very damn much against the Dallas Cowboys. And bottom line, September the 26th, when the Giants do play the Cowboys are going to put up 40 points again on that team. It's just the bottom line.
Greg, you just had to slip that in there, huh? You just had to. You couldn't help yourself. You couldn't help yourself, man.
No.
Look, I mean, my thing with Daniel Jones is he's always been meh to me. He's always been very mid. Like I never thought anything high or anything, too grand of him. Even when everybody loves to say that he won the playoff game back in a couple years ago in Minnesota. That was huh?
I said people do say he won it. I didn't think that was him at all.
Yeah.
That was Saquon and the defense.
If you listen to some people, there are people that say that Daniel Jones is the catalyst for why they won that game. I don't agree with it. I mean, if you have 2 eyes and you watch the game,
I'm gonna have to rewatch that one. But continue.
Yeah.
Joe was 100% accurate there. That was the defense and Saquon that won that game.
There you go. So that's my point. So I never saw anything high when it came to Daniel Jones. I never saw anything that was like, oh, wow, he has this. I mean, he had one big time run that saved his tenure as a Giants quarterback. And it just so happened to happen against one of the worst defenses in the league at the time. And yes, I'm talking about the Eagles defense. So I don't think anything more of him. I mean, if he does great, he gets another year. If he doesn't, the Giants do what they should have done this year and find a quarterback. So, I mean, that's just the truth of the matter when it comes to Daniel Jones. But it doesn't shock me that they're in this position. I mean, granted, they got GMs having their kids draft players these days. Okay, I'm not giving them the time of day. I'm just not. All right, I'm sorry. Malik Neighbors, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it.
Whoa! I think Neighbors is going to be a stud. He just has a bad quarterback for him. That's all.
I do, but the fact that we couldn't figure out ourselves on who we wanted to draft, and we had to go down to generation to figure that out is all that I needed to know. That's all I needed to know.
Wait, are you telling me 69-year-old John Mara and the rest of those, middle-aged gentlemen do not understand the new generation? That is shocking. Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brock Pierre.
Wow.
Mira is not his daddy. He's nowhere near his daddy.
Players like to celebrate in each other's faces. We can't have this in football. I'm John Mara. Yeah, that's the owner of the Giants. I just want
the main thing is though that the competition for Daniel Jones isn't in the league right now. So he's going to get through this year, and if he does well enough, he's safe. But if he doesn't, it's next year's draft that's what's going to replace him. They're not going to sign anybody for big money to go along with him. There's too much money in the quarterback room. It's going to be somebody in the draft that's going to challenge him next year.
Yep.
Okay. So
now let's talk about those sad sack Eagles. Let's talk about the sad sack Eagles.
You forgot who the host
Don't let
of this
Greg
show
bully you,
is.
Thomas. You keep on hosting the show the way you want to, man. Talk about the team you want to talk about.
What we're talking about.
No.
You drive the car, Thomas. Don't let Greg take over the bus, man.
I wanted to get the chaos out the way first. I want to address the team that was one of the biggest storylines of going all in. Let's talk about the lovely Dallas Cowboys. Give it to him, Greg. Give it to him.
Now, Steven and JJ always say all in, blah, blah, blah. We know this. It's an annual event. I ignore it. But the rest of you guys all jump in, and whenever JJ or Steven say anything, I ignore both of them. The Cowboys will always be a story because of JJ and Steven. It's just the bottom line. And of course, Stephen Jones, Stephen A. Smith jumps in and all that other garbage as well. But the bottom line is in the last 3 seasons, the only team that has won one more game in the regular season than the Cowboys have, the Kansas City Chiefs.
How many
Unlike the Kansas City Chiefs, however, when it comes to the playoffs, the Cowboys have totally sucked. Mm-hmm. And I mean sucked, because when you give up 48 points to the Green Bay Packers, you suck. And this is why I wrote last year, I wanted to trade away Dak. I wanted to trade CD. I wanted to trade Michael away. I don't care about these names. I don't care about those names. I want to see a Cowboys team that can compete for the NFC championship again. And again, we're going to be falling short yet again this year. I admit it. Bottom line, don't put any of that nonsense about a Super Bowl coming to Dallas. It isn't going to happen. There you go. Now, this is the honest to goodness truth.
Wow.
Thanks, Greg. You just ruined the thousands of memes that Mark Wilson and I had lined up for you all season long by just admitting your team wasn't going to make the Super Bowl. We were hoping for like visions of Gander and crazy expectations so we could just fire off our hilarious memes all season. You stole all our fun. Thanks.
Because I remain an honest Cowboys fan. I don't believe in the hype. I don't believe in the players that they do have. Dak Prescott was second in the league in passing and all that other jazz. He only had one receiver in the top 80, and that was CeeDee Lamb. So how he got the rest of these guys involved was beyond me. But when it came to the playoffs, the Dallas Cowboys suck. And until that changes, my opinion of the Cowboys remains the same. They will be there at the end, but they'll be beaten. Bottom line.
Maybe y'all should take the French flag off of your helmets. Maybe then you guys will play better.
Well, they'll actually be successful in the playoffs when they could actually be a complete team. They haven't been a complete team yet. Okay.
Nope.
Every time I watch that team, they're great on offense or they're solid on offense and great on defense. You're not seeing a complete team that shows up at key times. That has been the downfall for that team the past 20 years of them in the playoffs and falling out of the playoffs hard. So when you get a team that actually shows up defensively in the playoffs at a key moment, where you get an offense that goes out there and continues to put pressure on teams' defenses in the playoffs, that's when that team will show up again and actually compete for a Super Bowl. They haven't been that, whether it was Tony Romo, whether it's Dak Prescott, whether it's Terrell Owens, whether it's Des Bryant, whether it's CeeDee Lamb. That team, even when DeMarcus Ware was there, that defense, didn't they blow it in 07? The defense had their chances. They blew it. They made not. Okay. Yes. 2009, 2 years later, they beat the Eagles, go to Minnesota and get the brakes beat off. They're not a complete team. They haven't been, and it's why they continue to falter in the playoffs. And that's what it is.
100%.
You know, this just sounds very sad. This is giving a certain like emotion to the
Sad.
Dallas Cowboys this year.
Sad.
It
I'm
just
happy.
it gives
Yeah.
it gives this is what it's giving for them, you know? Like it just sounds sad, so sad, man.
Listen,
I'll tell you this, Thomas. I'll tell you
What's
this
that?
much. You know what's sad? It's the Cowboy fans. I'm sorry. How
Yep.
can you have a team that wins double digits and you're mad every year? Listen, there are teams that can't sniff double-digit wins in a row. Okay, so what are you complaining about? You didn't win a Super Bowl. Super Bowls are not handed out to people. You got to earn them in the playoffs. Okay, they haven't earned it. They haven't won it. But for Dallas Cowboys fans to sit there and go, "We're a Super Bowl or bust organization," you're a knucklehead. Okay,
Exactly right.
Plain and simple, your team is winning. When you were 5-11 3 years in a row, you were selling your season tickets. Okay, stop being fair weather fans. If you like your team, if you love your team, you love your team. If you don't, then find another team. But stop running on social media. Stop running on people's shows and crying about, oh, Jerry Jones. Believe it or not, the guy actually wants to win. Right now, he may have a misguided way of talking about it, but the fact of the matter, the guy does want to win. There are other owners out there that don't care whether they win or not. Okay, so
The biggest problem
the team is actually winning. They just haven't won a Super Bowl in a while. But guess what? There are bigger tragedies in life because Detroit, Cleveland, and plenty of other teams haven't sniffed one yet.
That's right.
Because you've got 5. There's very few teams you walk in the lobby and see 5 Lombardis sitting there. So quit your whining, enjoy some football, and please stay off social media.
Yep. And the bottom line is that it's Stephen Jones who does not understand how the salary cap and the actual cash in the league actually works. He doesn't understand this part. And that really is the reason why CeeDee Lamb isn't signed, why Dak Prescott doesn't have a new contract. It's because Stephen Jones just does not understand how this world really works. He doesn't get it. And it's just totally ridiculous. That punk needs to go back to being the chemical engineer that he was out of Arkansas.
Not punk, damn, Greg.
Oh yeah, he's a punk. He's a punk. And if I was Mike McCarthy, and the Cowboys make those playoffs again this year, I lock up every damn one of those players in a hotel room. There's no women, there's no podcast, there's nothing but football. I want to see the Cowboys play football in the playoffs the way that they used to.
No, whoa, wrong. How the Cowboys used to play playoffs was with the women, was with everything going down.
Never mind.
Wrong.
That was under Jimmy. That was under Jimmy Johnson, and that was a different era.
And
That
Barry
was a different
Switzer
era.
can keep it together.
That's a different era. These young people, they need to be locked down.
No.
They need a Marine in their
No,
faces
they don't have to be left out.
24/7 before they get out in that field.
It happened under Landry, too. You could hear about them hopping over fences.
You think
Exactly.
gentlemen in the 70s when there was no barely be able to get your picture taken, no video recording, no live feed. There was wild in. And you know what? They wild to 2 Super Bowls. That's all I'm saying. Out of multiple Super Bowl appearances. But the problem with the Cowboys is that this fix is so simple. Trade Dak Prescott. I'm not saying Dak Prescott's a bad quarterback. I'm not saying anything negative against him. But Dak and the Cowboys is a recipe that just does not work. We see it time and time again in a variety of situations, and every time it's proven, it does not work. Trade Dak Prescott, give Lance a shot in the throw-it-away year, lock up CeeDee Lamb because he just accounted for 1,700 yards, and do whatever you want with Micah. As far as I'm concerned, if you trade Micah Parsons today, I don't blink an eye because his playoff production, it just isn't acceptable. And for the amount of money that you're going to be paying him. If you really want to get serious, you load up on draft picks, you get this team young, you build them up together in the Cowboys system, and then you let them go and compete. They got too many people, but too many individual ideas. I'm almost done, bro. Too many individual ideas, and they're not locked into one team goal because they all have their own ideas of the way to get there. And none of those things work out. So get rid of all of them, except CD, because CD's a different breed. Rebuild your O-line, rebuild your D-line, especially since a bunch of guys are aging out or have already aged out, and then get back to playing strong, physical, fundamental football in which you control the line of scrimmage. Cowboys have not controlled the line of scrimmage, and that's why they've lost in the playoffs these past several years.
Yep. And it goes back to the old Dallas system of having 2 good running backs, including Emmitt Smith, But you ran that damn football down people's throats, and you used an efficient passing game. It wasn't Dak throwing 40 times or Romo throwing 40 times. That is nonsense. That is stupid. I don't care about the stats. I want to see those damn victories. And until the Cowboys go back to having that great wall of Dallas like they had in the 90s, this team is not going to be a Super Bowl team.
Greg, we just spent so much time talking about the Dallas Cowboys. That's a lot longer than they've been to the conference championship. And you know what? With that being said, let's address the last team there is in the NFC East, my lovely Philadelphia Eagles. Boy, oh boy, did we have ourselves an offseason. We stole Saquon from the Giants. We did lose Jason Kelce, one of the greatest, if not the greatest center there is known to mankind. We did lose him, but we did have an extension of both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, shoring up any contract issues there is, unlike some teams in our division. We got Jalen Hurts at quarterback. Now, granted, we do have Kellen Moore at offensive coordinator. We do have Vic Fangio at defensive coordinator. Question marks at best. I think that's fair to say. Okay. However, we did take the draft to address the defense, which is something that we desperately needed to address. So what did we do? We get Quinyon Mitchell at corner. And who else did we get? Cooper DeJean, also to help out that secondary. All right. We got Devin White from Tampa Bay on the cheap at linebacker, which I think will help as far as getting some tackling done, which is something that Philly couldn't do to save their lives last year. Okay. We still have Jalen Carter and we still have Jordan Davis in those defensive tackle spots. Instead of us having Hassan Reddick, I guess we did the trade that no one knew about because we got Bryce Huff from the Jets and they got Hassan Reddick from us. So, I mean, hey, it's the trade that I didn't know existed, but it's fine. Bryce Huff, who came off of a fantastic year for the Jets. I know that's crazy to say, given that Jets had an underwhelming year again. But Bryce Huff is there as an edge rusher. We brought back Brandon Graham, who just won't seem to leave, but that's okay. It's fine. We have the offensive line that I tried to breeze over because I think it doesn't get any bigger than losing Jason Kelce. It's the equivalent of the Rams losing Aaron Donald. I don't think it just gets more bigger of a hole than that, than losing those two guys on either side of the ball. So we did have Cam Jurgens move to the center spot. We'll see how that plays out. We've been having an ongoing training camp battle for that right guard spot. We'll see how that plays out. We still have Lane Johnson, who also is still great, refuses to retire. And by all means, Lane Johnson, if you can play well and stay healthy, I say go for it as long as you possibly can, my man. I ain't going to lie. Go for it. We did get Mekhi Becton at left tackle. Obviously, we got Jordan Mailata there, so he is a nice, solid piece to utilize. We want to put him at the tackle spot in case something crazy happens on the offensive line. We can make that adjustment necessary. However, I do think it doesn't get any better than the fact that we don't have to see a wide receiver / tight end screen on 3rd and 19 anymore. I think that's enough for me, okay? I really do. Kellen Moore, say what people say. People can come up with so many different things to say about Kellen Moore. That's fine. I do think he will bring something fresh and new to the Eagles offense that's desperately needed. I do think that the pieces that they addressed on the defensive side will help Vic Fangio do well on his defensive front. Now, outside of all those things, could the Eagles very well have a crash course to a struggling year like they did last year? Absolutely. But do I see it happening? No, I don't. And that's all biases aside. I think literally what the Eagles have done is address as many issues that they possibly could, given the pieces allotted to them. and they did a great job. I have to shout out Howie Roseman for getting the job done, putting the pieces together, addressing contract issues ahead of time, and putting people in place to make sure that we have the best functional machine going in the NFC East. I don't think you can ask for anything better than that, which puts more pressure. We talked about people that's under most pressure this year. If the Eagles don't get it done somehow, Nick Sirianni got to be out of a job. I'm sorry. I mean, if we're talking about those who are under pressure, he has to be it. Because as we're getting reports now about, players having some issues with him not being, not being too much of an expert on the X's and O's, I think that plays an integral part with a lot of kind of the issues that's going on between Jalen Hurts and some of the Eagles players and Nick Sirianni. Now, that being said, that'll end up determining how the season will play out. I do think that the improvements that they made on both sides of the ball will change all that. And quite frankly, might end up having us win the division. But that's just me. That is just me. Before we get to our season predictions for each team in the NFC West and the NFC East, we're going to have another quick commercial break for you. We'll be right back. We're back again. It's the 2024 NFL preview show where we are covering the NFC West and the NFC East. Now, before we went to our commercial break, I addressed the lovely Philadelphia Eagles and their outlook for this upcoming season. But I would be remiss if I didn't let my other fellow members address the Philadelphia Eagles as well. So, Greg, get your nauseating takes out the way so that we other ones can actually give their unbiased opinion on the Eagles this year. Go for it.
Hey, I said it on the draft show that the Eagles had a great draft and all that other fun sort of stuff. That's all good and dandy. However, Howie went with a kid from Toledo and another kid from Iowa. He didn't take those SEC guys that he loves. I don't understand that. But my whole thing with the Eagles, Jalen Hurts has a huge issue with Nick Sirianni. And that is going to be something that needs to be addressed by Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore needs to keep Jalen Hurts away from Nick Sirianni. And in terms of Saquon, I don't worry about Saquon Barkley. I don't worry about
Really?
A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith either.
Really?
I really don't.
Okay.
Because the Cowboys have guys in their secondary named DeRon Bland and Trayvon Diggs and four real good safeties as well. So your tight end is going to be quiet. Your running backs Saquon Barkley has never done anything really to the Dallas Cowboys to help the Giants beat them. So why is he going to all of a sudden be that much better in Philadelphia at his old age? No. See, he's at that number. He's at that magic number. He's there. He's hit that number, and that number is a big number. 27. That's it. You're done. You're done as a running back, according to all the experts. You're done.
Oh, Greg. Apologies to the national audience.
You guys spent a whole lot of money on him.
Apologies to the national audience watching this show. Greg did not help himself, and it's totally fine. It's fine. We have 3 other guys who are more than willing to give their unbiased opinions about the Philadelphia Eagles.
Joe,
Joe,
I need you, Joe.
I want Jeff to go first.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I saw Jeff put the finger up. He's got something to say.
Well, listen, if you're an Eagles fan, you have everything to feel good about, right? First things first, the low-hanging fruit. We have not had a repeat NFC East champion since 2004, all right? So, and that team was the Philadelphia Eagles. The Dallas Cowboys won the division last year, thanks to the Philadelphia Eagles giving it away at the end. I don't see that happening this year. I see the Eagles as your front runner for this division. I think Saquon Barkley adds the one big element they didn't have is an explosive running game. Yes, they had some explosive plays in their running game, but here's a complete back that can run, catch, and do it all. He's going to get spelled with some of those other backs that they have. The plethora of young backs they have they got in the draft, returning backs that they did have. This is an explosive backfield. So you add that to their receiving core, to their tight end room, and then you talk about the changes on the offensive line getting younger in a lot of places. This is going to be a team offensively that's going to be tough to stop. Then you factor in what they did in the draft. The weakness of this team last year, the secondary. A lot of great talent coming into that secondary this year, plus some moves in free agency. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson coming back into the fold, where he had his best year was with the Eagles. So I think this defense and offense are going to be improved from what we saw. I think the one question mark is going to be Kellen Moore. Does Kellen Moore get engrossed in the passing game, or does he let this running game flesh itself out? If he tries to do making the same mistake that the Eagles made with DeMarco Murray, trying to keep running him wide and not letting him run to his strength, that'll be a problem if he does that with Saquon Barkley. Now, Saquon can run inside, he can run outside, he gives you all of that, but I think you got to let Saquon Barkley be Saquon Barkley. Let him hit you inside, outside, throw the ball to him out of the backfield. Let him bring those linebackers up so you can hit him with that RPO behind the linebackers, get plays down the field. I think there's so much this offense can do. It's up to Kellen Moore to make it make sense.
Yeah, I mean, my conversation and my thing when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles is I would just love for Howie Roseman to have a seminar on how to manage the salary cap. Can you invite Adam Peters there from the Washington Commanders? Can you invite some of the other GMs that are struggling and show them how it's done? Because all offseason I kept asking myself, where's the money coming from? I can think of 1 or 2 times where I saw the words and the phrase restructured contract and Philadelphia Eagles in the same sentence. So he was still able to pull this stuff off. It's just amazing to me. So, I mean, on paper, and the game's not played on paper, unfortunately, for a lot of fans out there, they have a great team. We'll have to see what happens when the regular season starts. I think that it'll be very interesting to see how Kellen Moore handles Jalen Hurts, how that relationship goes, and also will Nick Sirianni really take his hands off the thing? Will he let Kellen Moore be the offensive coordinator, call those plays, and figure things out as far as players' strengths and weaknesses? Or will he get frustrated after they have a little bit of a rough start or a bad game here and there, try to take over things, and then burn the whole house down? Because right now, I think if you ask what coach has been given a nice pathway to be successful and make a deep playoff run, it's Nick Sirianni. Now, is he going to mess it up, or is he going to allow the coaches to coach and the players to play? So I think he's another one of those guys, to me, who's under a tremendous amount of pressure this season.
I think It is absolutely ridiculous how much pressure Nick Sirianni is on. I, in my 25 years of life, have not seen a coach who has led his team to 3 straight playoff appearances, 3 straight winning seasons, a Super Bowl appearance, and a division title be under more scrutiny entering year 4 than Nick Sirianni. It is absolutely ridiculous. I understand things didn't work out at the end of last season and they went pretty poor. It happens. But you know what also happens a lot in the NFL? Losing. When Nick Sirianni came in and took over, this Eagles team was messed up and in a world of hurt, and there was zero belief in Jalen Hurts. No belief to the fact that I'm pretty sure they gave them backup Nate Sudfeld a fully guaranteed deal, and they had to we go back against that and had to cut him and just take a loss on that contract. Since Nick Sirianni has come in, not only have we seen the Eagles operate better, we've seen the Eagles front office operate better. Everyone's praising Howie Roseman right now. Let's not forget 3, 4, 5 years ago, people were calling for his head. Let's not forget Jalen Rager. Let's not forget J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Let's not forget Andre Dillard. You know, there's a lot of issues that was happening before Sirianni came in. And once he comes in, I'm going to say it was solely on him. I'm saying that the entire organization took a massive step forward. And now you're thinking that he's under pressure. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I think that if you tolerated a lot from what we've seen from coaches in previous years during like the Chip Kelly era and when Andy Reid was losing NFC championship games left and right and then going on runs where they couldn't even, make the playoffs. If you're willing to tolerate all that, you don't even have to even use the word tolerate when it comes to Nick Sirianni. I think that no matter what happens, Sirianni deserves to be the head coach of the Eagles in 2025, unless they go like 2-15, of course. And I just don't understand why this is even a talking point. It didn't work out with the replacements last year. When he came in, he brought in 2 solid coordinators, Gannon and Steichen. It's not easy to always have to replace coordinator after coordinator after coordinator. That's not something that is commonly done in the NFL, and that just shows the success of a head coach so far. My last point of it is that, yeah, the Eagles have one of the most talented rosters, but let's not forget that there were glaring holes in said roster last year, especially at the linebacker core, right? And that led to a lot of the issues that we ended up seeing towards the end of the season. So now that they got a fully healthy roster, I think Devin White's going to be a solid addition for them. I think Nakobe Dean is going to take a massive step up this year, as will Nolan Smith. I think that you have a guy, Cam Jurgens, that you're not going to see that much of a difference between him and Kelsey's abilities because Jurgens may not have the same knowledge or the same experience as Kelsey, but he's younger and he's been training under him and he looks good. I think that they have 2 of the best tackles in the league. You have a fantastic running back room, one of the best wide receiver rooms in all the NFL, and just breathe. Like, there's so much of these reports and everything in these training camps and preseasons that don't mean a single thing. What matters is when they go down to Brazil, week 1, I think they're going to show up and show out against the Packers, and we're going to see good old-fashioned Philadelphia Eagles football, and they're going to be very successful. Just let them do what they need to do. All this noise and everything is just unnecessary and ridiculous.
Okay. All right. So you don't see any weight with what's going on in the Philly locker room. Okay. I think it's right way. It's fair.
Yeah. And for my criticisms of Kellen Moore, Joe unfortunately going to have to experience this firsthand. Austin Eckler moves as fast as a Mack truck when open space. Now Kellen Moore has a guy like Saquon that has that getaway speed. I think that you're going to see him actually get back to putting up the numbers he did towards the end of his Cowboys tenure as offensive coordinator.
But Kellen loved to put Zeke Elliott up the A gap constantly. It was nothing but A gap runs for Ezekiel Elliott. And unfortunately, they had Tyler Biotish there at center and not Travis Frederick, who could blow out defensive tackles. And guess what? Cam Jurgens against the DTs that he's going to be facing, we got to see that happen. Otherwise, Saquon is going to be stuck in behind that line yet again.
Saquon's a guy that can make a cut and go. We've seen it with the I've seen that man get stopped 3 yards in the backfield in New York and still pull off a 5-yard.
And I disagree with Greg saying that he's done, his career is over because he's 27. The experts, the so-called experts, can say what they want to say. The comeback he had from the ACL injury, I thought was really, really strong. And for most running backs, most elite athletes, you actually do get stronger after the surgery as the years go by. So I think Saquon will be just fine. If you can't get him in the run game, he's still a problem in the passing game.
Fact. Is Derrick Henry's career over? and he's 30. Nope, not even close.
Nope.
He put up 1,100 yards last season in Tennessee, and they had a paper towel as an offensive line. So
Frank Gore was still going strong for a long time with no ACLs and no ACL on either knee.
All he had was like chalk in his knees, and Frank Gore was still running that rock. And so I have no worries about Saquon at all. He's going. You know what? I'm gonna put it out there. I think he's gonna have 2,000 all-purpose yards in 2024.
Ooh. I like both predictions.
And a former D-line coach for the Eagles would say that defensive line got better with the subtraction of Fletcher Cox.
Facts.
Oh, yeah.
More reps to Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter's that dude, right? He got some NFL strength conditioning in him. You're going to see a monster this season. All right. And what does that always help out? Edge rushers. And if you rush 4, you can drop 7 in coverage. They're going to be more than fine.
Okay. So let's do this then as we bring this show to a close shortly. What are our season predictions for the teams in the NFC West? We'll start off in the West first. What are our records we're aiming for the San Francisco 49ers?
You want win totals or prediction or order of finish? I can do order of finish. I don't really have. I have to have schedules in front of me.
Let's do order of finish. I'm sorry, order of finish. Yeah.
No, I mean, if you guys want to do it either way, it doesn't matter to me. I just got to see a schedule. I say for the NFC West, obviously I'm jumping in and going first. I'm going to actually make a bold prediction. I think I got Rams. I have Rams 1. I have the 49ers finishing number 2. I'll go Seattle 3, and I'll go Arizona 4.
Okay.
You know, boss, I just want to jump kind of off of that topic because you and I have similar mindsets, but I have a bit of a difference. I have the Rams at 1. I have the Seahawks at 2, the Niners at 3,
wow.
and the Cardinals at 4. Let me ask you, gentlemen, let me ask you 2 questions, right? 1, is team chemistry important to success in the football field?
Yes.
Right? How many brothers was at Christian McCaffrey's wedding?
Here you go.
Oh, get out of here, dude. Get out of here. The reason why I said timeout is I took the timeout. I want to explain to me Seattle. Why?
Why Seattle? That's interesting.
I think Mike McDonald is going to get a lot out of the defense right now. They have some very young guys on that defensive line. Byron Murphy II is, to me, the reincarnation of Aaron Donald. I think he's going to do a lot of very special things. You guys got 2 really young offensive tackles. Geno Smith is, again, contract year, and I'm betting that he's going to go supernova. He has 3 wide receiver 1 caliber wide receivers. Kenneth Walker III still in the backfield, and when times get tough, he has an absolute wrecking ball and Zach Charbonnet. This roster is one of the most underrated rosters in all of football. They have veteran presence in the right places, and you're bringing in, again, one of the best defensive-minded coaches in all of the league. What's the best way to stifle an offense at the San Francisco 49ers? Get physical up front, which Seattle did. Get smart defensively, which Seattle did, and get fresh mindsets in there, which Seattle did. I think because of that and the players that they got, they're going to be the second right team in the NFC West.
Yeah, a reason why I'm going to take a very similar order. I'm going to have the Niners repeat again, but it's not going to be a runaway. This is going to be 3 teams within 2 games of each other at the top of that division. So I'm going to have Niners 1, I'm going to have Seahawks 2, and the Rams 3. All within 2 games of each other, and then you'll have Arizona hanging around the mix, probably in that, that 6-7 win range. But overall, those teams are going to beat each other up, and I think that's what's going to be the difference this time around.
Absolutely, will.
Most of the time, is San Francisco running away with the division. They're going to beat each other up at the top of that division. It's going to keep it close, and I think that's where eventually the Niners are going to pull that out.
Go ahead, Greg.
I actually agree with Joe. I think it's the Rams, the Niners, Seahawks, and then the Cardinals. The Rams really addressed a lot of stuff in this draft, and boy, did they ever hit. And I'm talking about stars off the hop. I mean, that defensive line is going to be a nightmare for any offensive line to deal with. Any offensive line, and that includes the Niners, which I still don't think that the Niners offensive line is as solid as it should be. And if Trent Williams doesn't play well, hey, that's it. That's over and done with. But again, I really like the Rams. The Niners, I'm giving them second place by 1 game over Seattle, but I think you've got three clubs here that are all chasing the playoff dream. Bottom line.
Wow.
I just like to add one more point that I think is getting talked about enough. Kyle Shanahan treated Steve Wilkes last year abysmally. The treatment here was abysmal. His words and firing him after the Super Bowl, when it clearly wasn't defense's fault, was abysmal. So not only did they promote in-house a new defense coordinator who watched his boss get treated like how Kyle Shanahan treated Steve Wilkes, they also hired Brandon Staley, the former Chargers head coach and Rams defense coordinator, as assistant head coach, which wouldn't raise any flags, except if you look at his the title on his website, there's a special mark that says Dig Defense on there as well. So I'm thinking that if Kyle Shanahan doesn't like what he sees from their current defense coordinator, he's going to put Staley in that role. And when you have that much pressure internally, you take some chances. And sometimes those chances don't work out. And that's why I'm very low on – that's one of my many reasons I'm very low on the Niners entering 2024.
Wow.
What about you, Thomas?
That's really interesting. I would do the 49ers, Rams, Seahawks, Cardinals. I don't trust the Seahawks, not this year. Maybe we can have this conversation next year. I don't trust Geno. I gotta see it to believe it for Seattle. I think in San Francisco, I think they're going to clear the air with this whole Brandon Ayuk situation. It's not going to mean a thing to them. They have a very very nice schedule. One of the most easier schedules there is in the league. And I think they're going to take full advantage of that. The Rams, I just think the continuity of having Matthew Stafford there at quarterback and what we saw out of Puka Nacua last year and Cooper Kupp, that tandem is about to be running roughshod over the league. And I think we'll see a lot of that this year. And by the way, I got to do this because I love doing this. Puka Nacua! That's my guy. But yeah, I think that tandem is going to do great this year. Now, I will say the loss of Aaron Donald, I don't think it needs to be said any more than that. That's a Hall of Famer that they lost. Big hole in that defense. But I think they did have some young pieces around him last year that were very crucial parts in that pass rush and that secondary spot. And they did address that in the draft. And I think that will come into the fold for them as well and have them win some games that the offense probably would struggle in some. So I think that's a very pivotal factor for that. But I think this is the 49ers division and we're all just living in it. And until we see some type of massive drop off, which is very possible, like Brock said, I got to see it to believe it. That's my only thing. I got to see it to believe it. That's all. And of course, Joe, I'm gonna start with you. The NFC East. What is your order heading into this year? What are we thinking?
NFC East to me, I think I'm gonna go with the Eagles winning the NFC East. I'll go Dallas second, Washington third, and I got the Giants breaking up the rear. Obviously the home memory wants to say Eagles NFC East champs, Washington second. But there's way too many things that have to go right for the Washington Commanders to be the second place team in the NFC East. You got to find the offensive line. You have to hope that Jaden Daniels has been watching some MLB this summer and learned the art of the slide and how to get down. He's watched the highlight videos of Nagata breaking RG3 in half and also breaking my spirit as a Washington Commanders fan. So hopefully he learns how to get down when the big guys come after him. But that analyst in me and not being a homer, yeah, we'll go Philadelphia, then Dallas, then Washington, and we'll bring up the rear of the Giants.
Okay. What we got, Brock?
Yeah, I wish I could say something different because I don't like to repeat the same thing, but I got to agree. I think the Eagles, from a roster standpoint, they're just way too superior to the Cowboys. And, of course, the Cowboys still have a lot of internal issues that they have yet to figure out. So I'll take the Cowboys at second. Yeah, I think there's too much. You know what? I'm going to actually switch it up. I think I'll take the Giants at third and Washington at fourth. And this is not a shot against the Commanders. I think they're too young and there's too many things to fix for them to be solid now. Whereas like the Brian Dable offensive system is entering year 3 with at least some familiarity within the core pieces, or just the better players. And then of course you add a player like Malik Neighbors, who I think is going to single-handedly get 2 wins by himself. So I'll take the Giants at 3 and then Washington at 4. But I'm real shaky on that 3-4 spot.
Okay, what you thinking, Jeff?
Yeah, I think we're very, we're all pretty much on the same wavelength when it comes to this division. I do have the Eagles taking the division. I have Dallas a very close second, and then you have a gap, right? Then you're going to have either the New York Football Giants or the Washington Commanders. To me, I'm going to take the team that I believe has more potential, and that's the Washington Commanders. When I look at this Giant team, I see a lot on the quarterback that a lot of people have questions about. That leads to a bad result for many times when that happens. It's very rare that it can come out of there with a very successful result. So therefore, I'm going to go with the Commanders having the better record than the New York Giants.
Go ahead, Greg. Don't do this again, man. Don't do this again.
What you think?
I have Greg, be yourself.
I am. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to say that the Eagles and Cowboys tie for this division at 11-6, and it comes down to the point differential between the two as to who wins this division. Then I have Washington, then the Giants, and I really want Washington to succeed so that we can put the damn Green and Kelly Green nonsense back to where they belong, which is last place. And the Cowboys and the Commanders fight for this division the way that it should be. It's just right. It's just right to have Washington and Dallas. What is this Philadelphia noise? I'm tired of it. It's enough.
Need a cold beer after this show, Greg. Anger man.
So you guys just understand. Greg spent his 30s, which was from 1956 to 1966, celebrating the Washington and Dallas competing, right? Or Greg, when did you start watching football? Was it 1920? Was it 1880? What year was it again?
1880 is crazy.
No age discrimination here on Team MBS Media, Mr. Vieira.
No.
He is a historian.
I am only going to be 60 years old in December. I'm only going to be 60. So,
wow.
Wow. We're lying now. Got it.
But I have been. Oh, Lord.
The opinions of Brock Vieira are
I am so sorry. Brock
Man, Greg broke StreamYard.
Commercial break. Jesus
Greg
Christ.
broke StreamYard. That's the first.
Yeah.
Okay.
My opinions do not reflect the
So
values
we're
of
lying?
Indians or
standards and practices kicked in.
I mean, okay. I might pull a swerve here, and it's fine. I do have the Eagles winning this division. But
Shocking.
The shocker for me is I actually have the Commanders at second. And I have Dallas at third, and then it's the Giants. I really see.
How am I shocked at this prediction?
Let the man speak. You talking good about the Commanders, Greg. You wait your turn.
Hear me out. Hear me out, okay?
Continue, sir.
So I think the Commanders' defense isn't god awful this year. I think that's the only time you can see that once in our lifetime. Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe twice. Okay, maybe 3 times. Oh, okay. I don't know. Okay, I do know you can only be ranked 32nd in the league at defense. Not a whole lot. Okay, I see an improvement in the defense for sure. I think Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen will get after the quarterback a little bit this year, enough to cause some chaos. I do see that happening. I also see Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin having a fantastic year. I'm not thinking along the lines of CJ Stroud and what he was able to do in Houston, but something along those lines where because that connection was so dominant that was enough to win some close games, some tight games against some matchups that, you probably would expect for the Commanders to lose. I could see that happening. I also think that the Cowboys didn't do anything in the offseason. I know that you could always have the mantle of telling certain teams that sometimes the best decision you could do is not having to make a decision at all. But for Dallas, that is something totally different for me. I think the fact that you have so much going on with Dak Prescott and his contract negotiations, the fact that you have so many issues going on with Micah Parsons, the fact that you have so much going on with CeeDee Lamb, I'm still not sure about the offensive line. I like the secondary, don't love it. The linebackers kind of, are a little suspect, to say the least. It's just so many question marks with Dallas that I just see them honestly imploding. I really do. And I think the Commanders will take advantage of that. And because of that, I just really do see a possibility of the Commanders getting that second spot. Now, does that guarantee they get into the playoffs? I don't think so. I think there'll be other teams in the NFC that will take those wild card spots. But could they be in the conversation to take that away? Absolutely. I could see that. I just don't like the fact that Dallas didn't address anything in the offseason, even in the draft. They didn't really do anything to fix some of the issues that they had last season. And I think it'll come back to bite them.
Well,
that's it.
I'll tell you this much. I see where you're coming from with the issues. I don't read as much into the contract situations except for CeeDee Lamb. And it's because CeeDee Lamb isn't there. The other two guys are working. So I don't read as much into their contract situations as I do with CeeDee Lamb's. I think the biggest issues when you look at the Dallas Cowboys are, one, how is this offensive line going to play? Because it's a revamped offensive line again, right? You got a younger left tackle. You have a right tackle who's playing above his station. He's an undrafted free agent who's now become a starter for multiple seasons. You have a question mark at center. Who's going to be the starting center? They have a competition going on there. We know the left guard has been phenomenal. A lot of people joked about the pick. He's been phenomenal. The right guard is – you only got to say is Zach Martin. So I think the line itself has some questions. The running game is not going to be as strong as you need. So I think the biggest thing is if they can't keep Dak Prescott healthy, they're in trouble. And the reason why is in the past, you had enough of a running game to protect Cooper Rush. If Dak Prescott goes down now, Cooper Rush cannot hide behind the running game. He cannot hide behind that defense. So this is going to be very, very imperative of keeping a healthy Dak Prescott for 17 games. Because if that doesn't happen for the Dallas Cowboys, they are not going to be able to pull off a 4-1 streak with Cooper Rush this time around.
No, and it's Brock Hoffman who's going to be the center. It's already done. Brock Hoffman is going to be the center for the Cowboys. It's Tyler Guyton's job to play a solid enough left tackle, and Terrence Steele has to be a whole lot better than he ever played last year off that ACL injury. But he has looked pretty good in camp, so that's all fine and dandy. But Mozzie Smith from that university that you cheer for, Joe, he has been coached up. I mean, coached up. Every single practice, Mozzie has been coached to attack.
You sound shocked, Greg. You're automatic guaranteed a 5-year NFL career minimum when you go to the University of Michigan, sir. It's in the bylaws.
Really?
Ask Brian Greasy. Continue, though. Continue. Continue. Come on, man. National champions, baby. Go blue. Don't let the free Maryland gear fool you.
Oh, Mozzie didn't win a national championship with Michigan, by the way. He's
a building block. It's called building the legacy.
Yeah. It was Chris
Jenkins. Ask Braylon Edwards.
It was
building the legacy.
Chris Jenkins.
They revoked that guarantee for Taco Charlton, though.
Yeah,
exactly. I think it's been around. I think
Taco hit 5. I think his last year was 5.
He did. He hit 5. I pay attention.
But he played for how many different teams?
No, Taco did hit 5. Actually,
5 is 5, sir. 5 is 5, sir.
Yeah.
I'll take that contract. Give me a year in the NFL, that money, I'll make it work.
Yeah, exactly.
You would
But
ever
no,
see
I
so many
still-
barbecue pits in your life.
I still see the Cowboys and the Eagles being tied at the end of this season. Bottom line, that's it.
Okay. And again, and by the way, any Cowboys fan who agrees with you, I don't think you're wrong for thinking that. I just think that there's so many question marks on this offense, on the team. It's just like I don't know if I could trust y'all. I don't even want to talk about playoffs yet. I just don't know if I could trust your roster right now. And
Yeah,
I think because of that,
this is pretty much the same gang of guys who've gone 12-5 3 straight years. But you just worry about
I
them
know.
fading away. Go ahead,
I
keep,
get it.
keep discussing the fading away. Keep going. It's okay.
Well,
Again, go ahead, Jeff.
what makes me doesn't feel, what really gives me pause about the Commanders right now is some of the guys I thought, when we evaluated these guys in the draft, I thought they were going to be very good. They haven't played very well. One being an Emmanuel Forbes.
Oh God,
One
what
of my
a
favorite corners in this class. One of my top 3 corners in that class. He has struggled in this camp. Oh my goodness. It's been bad. It's been bad.
Jamin Davis.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Jamin Davis has had a lot more ups than downs, but when he's had some downs, they've been bad. So,
They've been bad.
Yeah, Forbes is one of those guys I thought would stabilize that secondary. He hasn't done it. And just the other day, he gave up 2 touchdowns in the scrimmage. So I think he's struggling right now to find an identity at the next level. Maybe Dan Quinn figures it out for him this season. But right now, I think that there's a lot of problems on that defense that are going to take at least 10 games to fix for the Commanders. So
Jesus, 10.
that's why I can't put them near the top 2 of that division, because I still think there's too many things they're trying to figure out, not just being a whole new regime coming in, but a lot of young players who haven't even found their niche yet in the NFL.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all so much for tuning in. I want to give a special thank you to Jeff Barnes, to Joe Cardoso, to Brock Vieira, my lovely Off the Dome co-host, and lovely Greg. Greg.
That's not so sincere
You're
about
giving
Greg.
me a hard time today, but I appreciate the sentiment. I really do. It's always a pleasure to be on screen with you guys. It's a lot of fun. Looking forward to the season. And again, like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on Team MBS Media. Check all of our platforms and all the different shows that we do. We cover practically any and everything. So give us a look. And lastly, before we get out of here, join us.
One.
All right. I'm sorry, Joe. Yeah.